Hello, welcome to your first tutorial for this new module, this new VFX module. How exciting. Right, so I've already explained the layout of After Effects, the workspace, and the various panels and bits and pieces. So we're just going to sort of start by diving in, really. So what we're going to be doing today is just looking at some fundamentals of After Effects by creating some shapes and making them move around. But rather than just doing that randomly, we're going to be working on a small project, which is going to be those crawl lines that you sometimes see on like videos on Instagram and other social platforms that indicate how long the video has got left to go and that sort of thing, with a visual indication. So yeah, and then the nice thing about this project is then at the end of the day you can save this as a template and you can use it whenever you like. So without any preamble, let's jump straight in. So we're going to click on New Composition first of all. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the width and height first of all. Now, because we're making something for Instagram, what we're going to do is we're actually going to change our width to 1080. Okay, so that it's 1080 pixels by 1080 pixels, which means that it's square. Okay, and we're going to have 30 frames per second, because a lot of the time things that you'll have filmed, things that you'll be posting online will be filmed on a mobile phone. They tend to shoot in sort of 30 frames per second, so we'll keep it at that for now. And duration, we're going to say that's 14 seconds long. What we're going to do is we're going to make this 1 minute long. Okay, so make sure that yours looks a bit like that, 1080 by 1080, 30 frames per second and 1 minute long. You can choose a background color, but that's kind of we're going to be working on that anyway, so don't worry about that. And then click OK. So this is your composition window. At the moment it's transparent. This checkerboard effect means that at the moment I'm seeing nothing. There's just a transparent background. Okay, I can put the colored background on that I've just created if I want to by clicking this button here. So that's the solid white background, but I'm going to leave mine on transparent just so I can see what's going on. Okay, right then, let's go to Finder and let's import our video that we're going to be working on today, and I'm just going to bring that in. Okay, so what we're going to do, a little tip with After Effects is if you want to create a composition for a piece of footage, particularly stuff like mobile phone footage that's perhaps been filmed vertically, or more exotic kind of formats like 360 footage and that sort of thing. Okay, what you can do is you can pick up your footage and drag it down onto this little symbol here, and what this will do is it'll create a whole new composition based on the settings of the clip you've just dragged onto it. Okay, so what's happened now is we've got our original composition here that we've just made, and here's a new tab that's just been created, which is the composition based on this video. Okay, and you'll notice that these two compositions also live up here in the project panel. But of course this isn't what we want, is it? Because this is now a piece of vertical footage, which isn't what we want, you know. And if we hit spacebar and play it through, you can see obviously it's just running like in that format, and that's not what we want. We want the format for the square format for Instagram that we created earlier. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to close this project, and I'm going to come up to this composition as well. Make sure you don't delete the video, it's the composition that you want. Okay, and I'm going to just delete that by hitting backspace. And so now we've got our original composition and our footage. And instead of dragging it onto the new composition symbol, I'm just going to drag this down over here. And now that footage that we had before is now constrained within the proportions of the composition that we've just created. Okay, so you can still see where the original video's edges are. And so you can still see all the bits that are kind of redundant to what we're doing. But what will happen is when we render this out, all you'll see is the stuff that's within that composition. Okay, right then. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to open up the properties of our video. Now, a little tip with video content when you bring it in is that when you've got multiple channels running in After Effects, it's very easy to get lost. So it's always worth renaming your video, particularly if you've got lots of things running. So the way to rename something, if you want to just keep track of what you're doing, is just to right click and rename. And I'm just, rather than Instant Tutorial Video, which is quite a long name, I'm just going to call this Source Video. There we go, and that's much easier to see, isn't it? Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the properties of Source Video by clicking this little chevron here. At the moment, the things we can adjust, there's all sorts of other things we can adjust, but the basic things we can adjust are in these transform controls here, okay? And so what I'm going to do is, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on my footage a little bit, so you can either zoom in by using the wheel on your mouse or expanding on your trackpad. And what I can do is I can adjust my position to slide the footage up and down inside the frame that I've created until I've got a composition that I like the look of. Okay, of course, if I go too far, I'll see the edge of my footage. Okay, so I'm going to keep it within the confines of the footage I've created. I'm going to bring that up like so, and that looks about right. And I can play that through by rolling through my playhead, and I can see, yeah, I'm staying within the frame for the whole thing. All good. Okay, right then. So the next thing to do with After Effects is just to adjust our workspace to make sure we're not looking at anything that is redundant. So as we can see, we made our composition 1 minute long, but the clip is less than 1 minute. Obviously, if you're making this for Instagram, it has to be below 1 minute, otherwise it goes onto IGTV. So any of these little videos, this is a tutorial video I did for one of our Instagram challenges, by the way, back in the day. So if you don't want it to go on Instagram TV, then obviously you have to make it less than a minute. Okay, so the way to do this is, first of all, you've got two little blue sliders here at either end of your timeline. The top one zooms in on your timeline, so you can go from seconds to even down to the level of individual frames. So that's frame number 1, frame number 2. So you can be very, very precise about what you're doing at an actual, like at a frame level. Okay, but we're going to zoom out so we can see the whole thing. So now we've gone to seconds and up to 1 minute. Okay, and this other one, what it does is it selects the part of the footage that you want to be working on. It's your work area. Okay, and so you can pick up this blue slider and I can drag it to there, for example, and I can pick up this blue slider and I could drag it to there. Now, be careful with this, because if you hover your cursor over the playhead, so the work area markers, you get two different icons. Look, you get an end one, which is the arrow with a flat end, and that allows you to expand and contract. And then you get this icon with two arrows, and that actually moves the whole thing up and down. Okay, and so what happens is, basically, once you've set your play area, let's say this was my work area. Okay, so if I set my playhead at the beginning of the work area, you hit spacebar in After Effects to press play, and all that will happen is it will play through to the end, and then when it gets to the end, it will loop back to the start. And so just like the confines, the proportions of the composition that we made earlier, that's the bit that you'll see when you render out. When you set your work area, when we render the footage out, that's the only bit that will be rendered out. It won't render any of this, okay? Assuming that's what we want. But for this footage, that isn't what we want, because we're actually starting the clip at 0 and we're going to want the whole clip. So I'm going to bring my work area back to the beginning of the clip, and then I'm going to move this one to the end of the clip like so that it lines up. I'm just going to make sure that it doesn't, there's no flash frames or anything. Okay, so the way to do that, on your keyboards, you can use page up and page down keys to advance frame by frame. If your keyboard, if you're like on a laptop or something and your keyboard doesn't have page up and page down keys, on a Mac you can hold down Command and then use the arrow keys. As long as you're holding down Command, then it will move your playhead marker along frame by frame, and I can get to the end. So you can see there that there is a flash frame. So I'm just going to zoom in on that a little bit, make sure that's like so, and now there shouldn't be any flash frames. There we go. Right, so that's our workspace all sorted out. So what we're going to do now then is we're going to actually start adding the crawl lines, but we'll do that in a second video, because I know what these videos are like. When they get too long, it's a bit annoying. Okay, so this one's been setting up the workspace, and then come back in the second video and we'll do some actual adding of the crawl lines. Okay.